Boys, we are finally here at the end of the season. The culmination of the 2023 NFL season and the 2024 playoffs is finally arrived. The final episode of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast regarding games of this past season. That's the true reward. No, in all seriousness, the trophy itself is on the line. The Lombardi trophy is up for grabs in the final game of this NFL season being played this weekend in Las Vegas, baby. And we are here to break all that down and more here on your favorite, fastest rising NFL podcast for the last 95 episodes, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast, where we are here, your favorite troublesome trio that loves to just cause chaos all about. How much chaos have we really caused? That's in the eye of the beholder. And speaking of which, we are here to behold this game that we have this past weekend. No, do not check the calendar. You don't need to go back 4 years. I don't know if any of us really want to actually go back 4 years, considering some stuff that happened in those 4 years. But it is the same Super Bowl as it was early in the year of 2020 between two teams that we're very familiar with over the last 5 years. And we're going to break that game down and very more in the main section of the show today. But before we get to that, of course, my fellow compatriots of chaos, we're here, myself, Iceman Jerg, introing the show. On the top of the screen there with me, the Hall of Famer, the man, our games master, Justin. How we doing, brother?
Living the dream, man. What could be more exciting than Super Bowl time? It's not like my team will be ever be there, but in terms of football, it's exciting times.
Yes, absolutely. Like this is the part. Even when you're not in it in this part of the season, Justin. Like at the end of the day, in part because you want to get to the next season, you want like your hope to be renewed, but you also want to see who deserved to be called the best team for this past season. And we're finally at that point yet again. And of course, at the bottom of the screen, he's more thrilled with a root canal than Super Bowl 50. We could probably get a top 10 list of things he's more thrilled about than this specific matchup. But in all seriousness, he might say that, but we know he's looking forward to this one. The man himself, we're talking about crowning the next champion, the champion of this year's pick challenge. Of course, the Podfather himself. Rick, how we doing?
It's funny. I thought to myself when I saw Justin wearing that shirt, that's just like Dan Marino to wear a Hall of Fame shirt and jacket, but not actually have any championship trophies attached to it and all. But,
that's rough.
Oh, boy. Oh, we lost him. Oh, that's sad. That's sad.
That was mean.
I know.
What do you think offended him actually more? You think it was the Dan Marino thing?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was definitely the Dan Marino thing. Definitely the Dan Marino thing.
Justin. So we just talked about just before you rejoin. What hurt more there? The actual sting of the comment or like the Dan Marino comparison?
The comment. Dan Marino's a Hall of Famer.
There you go. Well. Yeah. I was more going Miami Dolphins, New York Jets thing. But
yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
The Jets should have probably took him. It is what it is. I can be objective.
I mean, I think a lot of people would probably say, yeah, Marino should have gone earlier in that draft. Yeah. I don't think you're going to get a lot of pushback there.
No,
I don't think you'll get too much there, to say the very least. But, of course, as the intros have been done, as we are here to say, ladies and gentlemen, let's have another fun episode of, well, I already said it there, fun, football, and chaos. We have plenty to talk about in this one. I mean, really, it all circles around the big thing, the big kahuna that is happening this weekend, the Big Dipper. I have to say a lot of various things because we technically can't say the main name itself. But a superb owl occurs this Sunday as the last two teams standing in this NFL season will vie for the trophy in sports. Dynasty versus destiny, I think, is one way that you could certainly describe this matchup. And we'll break it all down in the main portion of the show. But before we get to that, and of course, we have a rant podium to finish the episode. People have been missing it, so we're going to have plenty of those. Don't worry, guys. But before we get to all that, we start with the fun. And we start with another mind-blowing fact of the week. Podfather, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, to tease a little bit of what we're going to discuss before we get to what's happening on Sunday, part of our show is going to be talking about awards. And I have a very interesting lineage to speak of with the Heisman Trophy. Now, of course, this was supposed to be done back in December, but the show actually that I had planned to do this on was the show that I was supposed to, have my wife give birth to my daughter. And, that kind of didn't really happen. Sorry, one second. Oh, thank you. Oh, would you look at that? Oh, would you look at this award that I just got right here? Oh, and it's a big chicken. How's that for you? Look at that. Yes. Lovely. Thank you. Back to the Heisman Trophy talk, boys. We talk a lot about the great programs in college football that have brought many great athletes to the forefront of the NFL. And also, by the way, no one from Alabama has scored any points at all that has graduated. But what I want to talk about a little bit is something a little relevant to this discussion, which would be the 1990 Heisman Trophy voting. Because there's a very interesting name that you might not think about when it comes to this group here. So in 1990, Ty Detmer, of course, the great BYU quarterback, not named Zach Wilson, was the Heisman Trophy winner. He basically ran away with the award, 5,188 yards, 41 touchdowns, 28 picks. By the way, 28 picks and still won the Heisman Trophy. So I don't know what the heck the guys below him were doing. But second on the list was Rocket Ishmael, which Raghib, the brother of Qadri Ishmael from Notre Dame, who had 699 yards on 32 catches and 2 touchdowns. But the gentleman who was third in this ranking, I kind of forgot that he was a good college football athlete. He was a senior running back out of Colorado, 288 carries, 1,628 yards, and 17 touchdowns for a Colorado team that I believe that year won the national championship in 1990, which, again, you forget that Colorado won the national championship of any variety. And the reason why that man is popular and that man is known now is because that man was Eric Bieniemy, the former Washington Commanders and Kansas City Chiefs offensive coordinator. So all this maligness about how, he's not that good of a coach and he can't get a head coaching job. Well, you forget his roots. He was a pretty damn good running back in his day. And I think we forget about that. Much like we forget about the fact that in 1983 it was, or 1984, coming in at 9th in the Heisman Trophy voting in a year that was won by Doug Flutie, Jerry Rice. Because Division I AA athletes and lower than that rarely have ever sniffed the voting. Rarely have ever did that. Jerry Rice was 9th in that round, but there's actually an even better story to that. The next year, there was another guy who finished 9th, and it was kind of a lore thing. Because this was a gentleman who went to a college known as Plymouth State. Not a big school by any stretch of the imagination, but apparently this gentleman named Joe Dudek was the running back at Plymouth State. And in that year that he got to 9th, he broke so many records at the Division III level, not even Division II, Division III level, that he basically was, said, put this guy up. I think he had it was a weird stat. He had 5,000 rushing yards or something like that year because Plymouth State's offense just basically ran through him. He holds the NCAA record for career 100-yard rushing games with 30 and games with 2 or more touchdowns with 24. And in his time at Plymouth State, he went 37-6. Yeah. How this guy didn't win over the guy who did win that year is a mystery even to me. So, but yeah, it's an interesting one. By the way, you know who did win that year? Bo Jackson. I mean,
to be fair,
Bo Jackson.
That was a pretty good winner right there. 5,000 yards in a season?
Yeah. Well, again, Division III stats are just a little.
Oh, they could be cartoony. We know
they
that.
could be very cartoony, but also Division III games were just, even weirder.
Right.
So Walter Payton had the career touchdown record of 66.
Mm-hmm.
This guy Dudek 79 rushing touchdowns in his career.
And I'm assuming that's still the record, regardless of division level.
I don't think Reggie Bush broke that, and if he did, it's been vacated by now. So Oh, did that hurt? I'm so sorry. USC running backs, they don't do very well, do they? Sorry, Juice.
Clearly not. So that quite the there was multiple facts in there in this.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that I'm trying to refresh my list because I have a bunch.
Paragraph.
Well, thank you. I have a bunch that I'm trying to hold through, and obviously with everything that happened this past year, I kind of lost some weeks along the way. So now some things are being combined. But to start off that first one, yeah, Eric Bieniemy apparently was a damn good running back in college, and guy can't get a sniff at a head coaching job in the NFL. So,
Although I will confidently say he will be an OC again pretty soon here for all intents and purposes. I think
maybe the United Football League needs an OC for the first year.
I mean, hey man, with how bad they look this season, I think Kansas City. I don't think they would say no to bringing him back because Matt Nagy, he does not deserve that job.
Well, again, when Matt Nagy over anybody, I think if I had to choose between Matt Nagy or Adam Gase, I would choose the cliff that I would fall off of instead.
I very much second that right there. But real quick, Rick, you had all those facts. Let's not scoot by the very first fact that you gave us, that pristine trophy that you were handed to.
Yes, thank you. I brought him back. This is Marvin the chicken.
Marvin the chicken.
Yes.
Justin, this guy, man, this guy. Because Rick, how for you to be willing to get that trophy, it's almost like at some point we might actually do plan things out on this show, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, yep. How about that? He's not even looking at the screen. How about that?
I'm not looking at the screen on purpose. I know what you're doing.
To be fair, I will say this too. If you do look at Jurg's trophy, it looks like one of those old school laptops from like
100%.
when like the early 2010s, back when HP had those gigantic ones, because now everything's more streamlined. But the two buttons that broke on you constantly, that's great.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Dude, the fact that this, like, I mean, you say early 2010s, this is like almost near to my MacBook at this point.
Oh, yeah.
Like, and my MacBook is old. My MacBook is from 2015.
My first HP that I got from college in 2009, that was that. Yeah.
It's like every single laptop in a 6-year period just modeled the same exact setup.
And by the way, I chose the chicken because going into this year, I thought there was no clucking way that I would win, but I did. So,
And of course, I chose the laptop because, well, we all do the show off our laptops.
This is fair.
With the lead that I had, I thought there was no clucking way I would lose, but apparently I cannot pick the last week for the life of me.
So Justin continues to be the Cody Rhodes as Rick and I be the Rock and Roman Reigns to him. Maybe next year he will finish the story, ladies and gentlemen. We have yet another chapter and more motivation. This was the last of the budget for this past season for the show. So
we blew the whole budget on stupid trophies.
100%. So Justin, next season, my man, it's there is a budget saved for the trophy. It might have your name on it next year. Well, actually, these don't even have our names on it, if we're being honest.
They don't. No. We'll send you the link to where we bought them from. Although you could probably cobble up a few more dollars together and get a larger trophy if you wanted.
I think he could do it for himself. Where we got these bad boys from. So
get the most ostentatious trophy you could think of. Get the Pop-Tart, the Pop-Tart that was cooked and then eaten at the Pop-Tarts bowl. That'd be great.
100%. No, I mean, what you should really get, we talked about this, Rick, is the original trophy idea for us. Was it a polar bear license plate is what we were discussing at one point? Oh, man.
Polar bear license plate? Nice.
Yes. I feel like Justin would get that next year if he was just to spite the both of us.
He would. And, he's got a very nice wall behind him to put it on. So
I, for sure, will definitely not remember.
Hey, that's why we archive these bad boys, Justin. That's why we are here for that. So that being said, the fun and games gone. Rick, once again, another mind-blowing fact fun there. And of course, the championships, the trophies that show that, man, did we really waste that money on these trophies? Absolutely. Was it worth it for the gimmick?
Absolutely.
Even more so. So that being said, guys, let's get to a little bit more of the meat of the matter. Before we get to the main course, let's get to some of the appetizer here. Let us talk about, now, Rick mentioned awards. Let's talk about awards. Let's talk about honors. Let's do a very quick reaction here, boys, to the NFL awards that were given out officially over the last, I think yesterday, as we are recording this, is when they came out. So that being said, we are going to react to the award winners of the main awards. Then, of course, we did our mid-season rankings here on the show, and Justin and I kind of gave our thoughts about the nominees a couple weeks back as well. So, I don't think this will take too long in terms of the awards necessarily, but of course, as you see at the bottom of the screen, we're going to be having a very quick convo on the seven new inductees to the NFL Hall of Fame, and our quick thoughts there, and maybe some thoughts about some of the names that were just left off of this final ballot, to say the very least, and the future that those guys have, and how I think just the general idea of how stacked these Hall of Fame classes are going to be in the next few years here, boys. So that being said, let's get to the quick rundown of the award winners for this season. So the official 2023 NFL Offensive and Defensive Rookies of the Year: CJ Stroud winning the Offensive Rookie of the Year, and Will Anderson Jr. winning the Defensive Rookie of the Year. So Houston sweeps these two awards. Not the first time, obviously, and before this, it was still pretty recent, because a couple of years ago, Justin, your Jets, and back then, Rick, your Jets, Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner swept Offensive and Defensive Rookie of the Year. So the Texans follow in kind with their guys who they picked second and third overall in their respective draft. These two, of course, CJ Stroud and Will Anderson being just pillars for this Texans franchise going forward. A big reason why this team shocked everyone and ended up making the postseason because of their two talents. So I don't think really there's much for us to say about this. I think we all expected this from the get-go with these two winning. So
Stroud took 48 of 50 first place votes.
Yes, Rick has the voting breakdown for the awards, ladies and gentlemen. So Rick, tell us. I know CJ Stroud was, I'm sure, the bigger margin, but I've been reading that Will Anderson's was a lot tighter comparatively.
Yes. So offensive rookie, I'll just give you the top three because there were only three guys that had a considerable amount of voting. CJ Stroud had 246 points, 48 first place votes, 2 second place votes. The other 2 first place votes went to Puka Nacua, who was second on the other 48 ballots. He had 154. And Sam Laporta was third place, 40 third place votes. So, 40 points there. But you're right. The defensive rookie of the year voting was a lot closer, a lot tighter. Of the 50 first place votes, Will Anderson only got 16 of them. But 21 second place votes and 8 third place votes, which got him 151 total points. Jalen Carter had 14 first place votes, 14 second place, and 10 third place for 122. And then an interesting development was that Kobe Turner had 14 first place votes and finished with 95 to finish in third place. Further down the list, I just want to give a pub to a guy that I had mentioned, Byron Young, had a 1 second place vote and got 3 points. So, but you're right. Anderson and Carter were very close. And I know we talked about Carter in our breakdown earlier, possibly being the guy to win this. But what happened, I guess, Carter's production dropped off towards the end of the year while Anderson's stock soared because the Texans just really got a lot more play. And so I think that's kind of what turned the tide. But it was very close between the two of those guys. And I think that kind of shows you how this year is going to go. How this race is going to go for those two guys for a considerable amount of time. Shout out, by the way, to @RobMotti on Twitter. He's the guy that has all these compilations together. I don't have the leisure to scroll of anything that tells you what the voting was, but I'm just looking at what he has. So,
well, real quick, Rick, thank you, by the way, and we, of course, have the voting breakdown for the rest. But before we continue, the second ever comment in show history, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are. Thank you.
I hope so.
Thank you. Hopefully many more to come. And yes, alluding to the title of the episode, can the script be wrong? Man, oh man, we hope so. We'll bring this comment back up once we get to the discussion of the game itself, but we want to say a big thank you to our live viewer here and the live viewers that do just watch us live on a weekly basis, because we love having fun with this, and when we actually get people involved, a little bit of moments where we get to it, it's a grand old time. So thank you for joining us on the show, brother. We appreciate that. Of course, we'll bring that back up. So that being said, let us continue with the awards. So that was Offensive and Defensive Rookie of the Year. Let me just go to Offensive and Defensive Players of the Year then, to just keep up with those. Christian McCaffrey, run CMC, baby, winning the Offensive Player of the Year award. Could have won it several years ago. A certain slant running wide receiver in New Orleans took that away from him. But he gets his back this time around, and some people might say he probably took that from a wide receiver. So everything comes full circle, guys. Everything just goes full circle. And in the defensive side of things, Defensive Player of the Year, Myles Garrett. Again, we talked about this, and Rick, I'm sure, is going to go through the voting breakdown now. Like, you could have given this award to a couple different names, but Myles Garrett, no wrong answer when it comes to that award, to say the very least. Dude was great this season. Dude was a force for Cleveland, made his impacts, and it gets his first career Defensive Player of the Year award and the first ever Defensive Player of the Year award in the modern Browns era. Is what it said. I'm sure if you go back to the Ravens time when they were there originally, I'm sure there's at least a one or two. So congratulations, Myles Garrett. Some history made right there. Rick, well, Justin, any comments before Rick reads us the award voting in regards to those two awards?
I mean, honestly, I really feel like for the most part, they got all the awards right. I mean, it's where I was leaning towards on everything. The only things that I would maybe consider like questioning would be comeback player of the year and maybe MVP, but like I can't disagree, so to speak. But let's get to the voting.
Yeah. Rick?
CMC took 39 of 50 first place votes, 222 total points, almost beating second place by 100. Tyreek Hill had 7 first place votes. The other 4 were 3 for Lamar Jackson and 1 for CD Lamb, which I think is very interesting. And then for defensive player of the year, Myles Garrett, 23 first place votes, 165 total points, besting TJ Watt, who had 19 first place votes and 140 points. My issues with who came in third, Micah Parsons. And again, I understand that this is like the run, but this was a very media-driven third place guy. Because if you look at the 3 guys that were below him, I would argue that those 3 guys had better years than Micah Parsons did. I'd even argue that the guy who finished in 9th place had a better year than Micah Parsons did. So 4th place was Max Crosby. I would say Max Crosby had a better year than Micah Parsons, personally.
He was a monster for sure.
I would
Who
think so.
downvoted you? Is that a thing?
I know, probably someone downvoted me, but it's probably probably a stupid Cowboys fan. But you know what, Cowboys fans? Deron Bland was 5th place. He had a better year than Micah Parsons. He did. Broke the record for most interception return for touchdowns. He had a better year. Antoine Winfield Jr., who should have gotten to the Pro Bowl, even if it wasn't a thing, I think had a much better year. And the guy who finished in 9th place, Khalil Mack. What a renaissance he had, you know? So I think Micah Parsons getting 7 first place votes is solely media driven, and I want to break this narrative right now. If you're not a good enough player, you don't deserve to vote. You don't deserve to win. I'm just sorry, but
let me just say this: the issue with defensive player of the year is we can drum up all of these stats and statistics to make someone seem really good and comment, and I don't want to take anything away from the season that these guys have had. Like Micah Parsons, a lot of what he does doesn't always show up on the stat sheet. I mean, when they had big plays, unless it was a pick 6 by Deron Bland, I mean, even when it was, like, there's a reason that Micah Parsons is being named. It's because he's involved. Even if you're not seeing it directly correlated in a stat sheet, he's involved on almost every play on defense.
Right.
So when you have like a top season like that with your defense, because the Cowboys did have a fairly good defensive season. They had their woes for sure, but for the most part, they were pretty solid on defense all year round. Micah Parsons was the leader of that defense, and Micah Parsons is everywhere on the field. I'm a statistics guy too. I'm not going to sit here and say that I would have thought Micah Parsons deserved to be in the top 5, but I can't. Again, it's one of those things where I'm like, it's still Micah Parsons. I mean, he's still doing so much on that field.
And you also mentioned Justin,
top 5, but I can't argue. I can't like put someone down for it. I don't think.
And you mentioned it, Justin. That's like a good chunk of what he does doesn't show up on the stat sheet. Even if you go just by strictly what does show up on the stat sheet, 14 sacks this season is not half bad. It's not half bad at all. So it's right there to say the very least. And I mean, Micah Parsons, since he's came into the league as a rookie, has been very good. Like, I believe at some point we will get Micah Parsons being the defensive player of the year in his career. Now, there's 2 questions to that. A, will it be with the Cowboys, or will he no longer be a Cowboy when that happens? And then B, will it be, the properly deserved MVP award or defensive player of the year award, or will it be a drummed up sympathy media award like it was for Joel Embiid with his first career MVP award? Will be the question. Now, I'm not going to go strictly and say this was a pure media-driven third place finish. Micah Parsons certainly had a good year, and I think when you consider the loss of Trevon Diggs in that secondary, and Deron Bland stepped up himself in the secondary when it just came to the raw interception numbers, and Micah Parsons, of course, at the first and second levels. Like, I'm not going to say Micah Parsons doesn't deserve to be a candidate or in the conversation, but I will lend credence to the fact that this award is one of those things you mentioned, Justin. It's like there's no science to this. You could say this for most of the awards, but there's no science to defensive player of the year because, well, in sacks, who like Myles Garrett, good season. same exact number of sacks as Micah Parsons. The following players had more sacks than both of those two. Max Crosby, as Rick mentioned, Daniel Hunter, Khalil Mack, Josh Allen on the Jacksonville Jaguars, although Josh Allen on the Buffalo Bills probably got sacked as many times. Trey Hendrickson on the Cincinnati Bengals, massive renaissance season for him. And TJ Watt led the league in sacks yet again in his career. That dude is, Jesus Lord. So it's one of those things where you need to go. And if you look even just at the names that are below these guys, Jonathan Renard on the Texans, 12 and a half sacks this season. Like, pretty good. Montez Sweat, total 12 and a half between his two teams with the Commanders and the Chicago Bears. So there's no exact science to all this. It's just all about like what the voting breakdown is. And I mean, Rick literally just gave us the breakdown. Like, to a lot of people, the way, like, if you believe that the way the Browns had to will that team to the postseason this year, because if that defense did not play at that level this season in the regular season, separate postseason, ladies and gentlemen, it's two different seasons. If you look strictly at the regular season, if Myles Garrett is not the leader on that Browns defense, they probably aren't as good, and they probably don't make the playoffs. And if that, to me, like you said, Justin, of where people want to go, if you want to make that argument for Myles Garrett and that's why you voted for him, I'm not going to say that you made a bad vote because it's Myles Garrett. Similar to what you were saying about Michael Parsons. So it's very much about, this was a season where it was so close. You're splitting hairs and making, I don't want to say personal decisions as being biased, but I'm saying a personal choice of who you think is the defensive player of the year. I'm sure if all three of us at the very end of the regular season compared to our midseason, I think we all maybe would have picked a different player from each other. Like, I think that's how close it was this season.
Incidentally, by the way, Danielle Hunter and Trey Hendrickson didn't get any votes.
Now that is bad. That's bad.
So here are guys that did get votes, aside from the ones that I mentioned. Fred Warner got 7 points, 1 second place vote, and 4 third place votes. Roquan Smith got 4 third place votes. Justin Matabuke got 1 third place vote.
Yeah, 13 sacks this season.
And Sexy Dexter Lawrence got 1 third place vote.
Really?
Yeah. Huh. Oh, and when we get to Coach of the Year, there will be some interesting things that you'll see. So
I think, to say the very least, though, I think Coach of the Year and Comeback Player of the Year are probably the two awards where we have the most to talk about. Well, I mean, maybe the MVP award as well. We'll get to that in a moment here. So let's get to let's get to Coach and Comeback Player of the Year here real quick. So Coach of the Year for this season, ladies and gentlemen, DeMeco Ryans was an option. Led the Texans to double-digit wins in the postseason. Dan Campbell, the turnaround for the Lions, the first division title in 30 years. Again, postseason don't count. Even just the regular season, great year. Kevin Stefanski was a candidate. It's like, not bad. Kevin Stefanski wins Coach of the Year, and it's the second time he's won it with the Browns. And look, respectfully, just because you made the Browns good and had them have a good record doesn't just mean you should automatically get that award. Which is, to me, if it's one of those things where, like, I'm going to say the voters screwed up definitively on an award this season, and there's probably two that I think the three of us would say they did. They screwed up on this one. How does this one not go to DeMeco Ryans and Dan Campbell?
Oh, because Cleveland was in just as bad of a spot and went through way more turmoil this year and still finished with an 11-win record. The only reason they didn't win that division is because they were up against the number 1 seed. And guess what? They beat him twice. I mean, did they beat him? No, they beat him once. I think they split. They split. So, I mean, let's face it. With 4 starting quarterbacks, they had the 3rd best record in the AFC. They had a better record than the Texans. They beat the Texans. They were just did they beat the Lions? Did they play the Lions this year?
I don't think they did.
I don't recall.
I don't remember either.
I don't remember that.
They were really, really good for the amount of turmoil and BS that they went through this offseason. And he's been consistent at the helm for a while now. He's got them playing good, consistent football. And again, for them to, nobody expected them to win 11 and get 11 wins, even with Deshaun Watson healthy. We weren't sitting here like, yeah, Cleveland's going to be a threat this year. No. So, again, it's not something that I'm gonna nitpick at. I think that he was absolutely a deserving candidate, and I think that I'm not upset that he won.
There's a difference between candidate and a winner. He deserved to be a candidate.
He's a deserving candidate. If you deserve to be a candidate, then you deserve to win that award.
Boys,
again, other people could deserve to win the award. It's who you think deserves it more. And as good of a story as Dan Campbell was, I expected the Lions to be better this year. I did not expect the Cleveland Browns to win 11 games, and I did not expect them to do it. If you would have told me they had 4 starting quarterbacks, including Joe Flacco, and they stayed relevant, I would have bet a lot of money and lost.
Well, yeah. This one was a doozy, boys. So there's 50 Associated Press writers that contribute to this vote. So before I get to the top guys, let's get to the bottom guys, because I want to examine this through and through. 1 point each, meaning they got 1 third place vote. 3 coaches tied. Todd Bowles, which, I suppose Mike McDaniel and Sean McDermott. So, okay. With 2 third place votes, just above them with 2 points, Matt LaFleur. Okay, fine, sure. With 4 third place votes, 4 points total, Shane Steichen. If the Colts had gotten over the Texans, he might have gotten more consideration, I think.
100%.
With 1 second place vote and 2 third place votes at 5 points total, friend of the show, Mike Tomlin. I mean, of course. So now let me jump ahead to the top 2 guys. Kevin Stefanski and DeMeco Ryans both finished with 165 total points. The difference is Stefanski had 21 first place votes to Ryans' 20. So let's examine this. Where are the other 9 first place votes? I'll tell you. In third place with 33 points and 3 total first place votes, Dan Campbell, which fair. Tied for 4th place, Kyle Shanahan, who had 3 first place votes and 26 total points, and John Harbaugh, who had 2 first place votes and 26 total points. Now, this is where it's going to get really hairy.
How many are left? How many are we counting for? 1? Oh,
One.
okay. Who got this one?
Sean McVay.
No. Oh.
Sean McVay got 1 first place vote, 10 third place votes, 21 total points.
Hey, I mean, he helped bring that team back from the dead.
But can you honestly say that Sean McVay's coaching job was better than DeMeco Ryans' coaching job?
I think,
because to me that's kind of where it goes. If DeMeco Ryans gets that first place vote, he wins, no question.
Yeah, no.
Because he gets more total points.
Or even if he gets an extra second or third, because it would have technically put him in more points. And at the end of the day, like, we've had award finishes where you get the higher award point total, but you didn't get the most first place votes.
Hello, 2016 presidential election.
If on one of these brackets he wasn't anywhere within the top 3, if he just gets on one of those extra ones, even for a third place, he wins. So I don't want to diminish what Sean McVay did, because
that roster was devoid of any depth.
It was. But here's the other kicker of that. To that end, like I said, 50 AP voters. DeMeco Ryans' name only showed up first, second, or third on 43 ballots.
No, that's garbage. Those other
7 guys left him off the ballot completely.
Those 7 others should be stripped. There's no way. There's no way.
And to be fair,
how many guys can you put on a ballot?
5 ballots as well. Stefanski was left off of 5 ballots. Ryans left off of 7.
And you could only submit 3 guys?
Yep.
Yes.
First, second, third. That to me is very suspect. Very suspect.
7 people didn't watch Houston Texans football this season. That's what that tells me.
Well, again, like if you combine the guys who just had third place votes, that's 9 points.
Let me just play for devil's advocate for just 1 second. I mean, if you really want to turn around and make the point that DeMeco Ryans shouldn't be there, I think what you're basically doing is just saying, well, he didn't have to coach anything because he had the quarterback.
That's
because
that
they were. Let's just say this: they're
garbage.
playing from behind a lot. A lot of what CJ Stroud did was comebacks. And in terms of, I mean, maybe you could give the credit to a coach for comeback, because you could say you kept your team steady and you didn't give up and blah blah blah, and you were the rock and you kept your team in it. But like, again, this is not something I think. I don't think that, but
I would love to see these 7, if maybe they have that logic train, Justin. I would love to see how many of them had CJ Stroud going first overall in this past draft. Because if none of them did, off a cliff. That is unacceptable work.
Let me also throw this at you as well, because we didn't talk about this one, but assistant coach of the year, because that's another big one.
I think I saw this one.
You know who was the winner? Jim Schwartz, the Browns defensive coordinator. Bobby Slowick didn't even sniff the top 3. He was 4th. So the Texans' slight is garbage. I'm sorry, but
that's awful.
Mike McDonald, who was the Ravens D coordinator, took 2nd place.
Yep.
Ben Johnson was 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
And then Slowick was 4th. Like, the Texans won their division. The Browns didn't. What football are we watching?
It's not even that, because again, like, Justin has some credence to where the Browns, part of the reason why they didn't win that division is because of the number 1 team in the conference itself is there. You could give some credence to that, but I mean, if you want to, like, if you're comparing Kevin Stefanski and Dan Campbell to the whole preseason comparison thing, all right, raise your hand if you thought the Houston Texans were winning that division this year. I had higher thoughts of the Browns going into this season and challenging for a wild card spot than I thought of the Texans going for the division. And I think I could say that for the 3 of us. There is no.
I had him a second.
Okay, fair to you. Fair to you. There is no way, if you want to, like, going by the metrics, if you are saying, okay, you know what, this team really surprised me, the fact that D'Amico Ryans was left off of 7 of those ballots, 7 of them. No, all 7 of you should get your votes taken away. That's garbage. That's utter garbage. That's utter garbage. I'm not even going to say anything about who they have. Oh, no.
Well, no. Comeback player of the year, I'm saying. I'm looking at who's...
I know that's... So let's go to this really quick. Comeback player of the year, ladies and gentlemen. It is not the guy who a majority of us thought were going to get it. And again, Rick and I mean, I think Justin agrees with us, but Rick and I are going to continue to push this as hockey fans. We're going to continue to push our agenda here to get this to spread to other sports. There should be the equivalent of what the NHL's Masterton Award is in these other sports, where you give it to a guy who was able to battle back from a more off the field related thing. I'm sure every single season we could figure that out. Heck, you would have had 2 of them this year if that was the case, because John Mechie on Houston battled back as well. So, like, and that's an award where you could give it to 2 guys. Hey, you fought leukemia. Hey, you were able to make a roster after a cardiac arrest on the field. That would have been really bad news if things had gone south for the league. Like, that's an award you could give to multiple people if you so choose. Like, there's no reason. Again, I'm saying there's no reason in the world that the NFL shouldn't have that. It does not cost you any extra money. You are a billion-dollar organization. I'm sure you could spend a little bit on the metal that needs to be used to create that. Heck, Rick and I spent more on shipping this thing than it being created. Come on now.
We did. That's oversight.
So that being said, Joe Flacco won the comeback player of the year.
So again, let's run through this top to bottom, or bottom to top rather. 1 third place vote each, so 1 point each of these guys. Kyler Murray, which we talked about pre-show, we can kind of understand.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson got a comeback player of the year vote. What did he come back from again? Well, this is the other Lamar Jackson, but I don't know what he came back from either.
I don't think he came back from anything. I don't even think he's on a roster anymore.
And Aaron Donald got a comeback player of the year vote.
For the Rams being bad last year? Like, I love Aaron Donald, but no, that makes no sense.
Tied with 3 points, Calvin Ridley, who had 1 second place vote.
Oh, Lord.
So I guess he came back from gambling.
Yeah.
And I'm not taking anything away from this. Breece Hall, 3 third place votes. That, I think Justin will agree that's comeback player of the year worthy.
He's more legitimate than the other names you've said so far.
Oh, it gets better. 1 first place vote and 1 third place vote. 6 points. Big clock Brock Purdy.
Where did he come back from?
He tore his UCL in the NFC Championship game.
Oh, for the love of God.
Wasn't expected to start at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
But then also technically really didn't miss a start.
Yeah.
Throwing that out there.
If he had missed 5 games at the start of the season and came back, you have a little bit more to this. He didn't miss a damn game.
Yep. 21 points here, 4 first place votes and 1 third place vote. This I give a little credence to. Tua.
He like, I'm not going to argue that. He definitely came back.
Prior to DeMar Hamlin's cardiac arrest, his was the worst incident we saw last season.
100%.
So that I fair. 1 first place vote, 6 second and 7 third for 30 points. Because first place are 5. That's weird.
Yeah.
Matthew Stafford.
Wait, has he won comeback player of the year before?
I think he did. So now, third place with 10 first place votes, 10-2, and 13-3, 93 points, meaning he was left off of 17 ballots. Baker Mayfield. Now, here's the thing. I kind of understand this because the story's sort of similar to Geno Smith in a way, where like he was a cast off from a bunch of teams and finally found his footing and got his team to the playoffs and won a division, won a playoff game, could have won 2. I get that. So I understand if you didn't want to vote that way because it's the same story 2 years in a row. I get that. But now let's get to the top 2. The writers made an here, I think.
Oh, you think?
So DeMar Hamlin got 140 points.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Flacco beat him by 11, 151.
Okay.
DeMar Hamlin had 21 first-place votes.
Why do I feel like you're about to say Flacco had less than him?
Flacco had 13. No, wait. It gets better. Flacco had 26 second-place votes.
Okay.
DeMar Hamlin had 7.
Ooh.
Flacco had 8 third-place votes. Hamlin had 14, which means if you're doing your math correctly, 8 people left Hamlin off their ballot completely. And if you're looking at it on the other side, Flacco was left off of 3 ballots.
Jesus.
Like, I'm sorry. I was going to dive into this a little bit later on my rant podium, but the fact that this information all exists on social media, just out there for everybody, just really shows you that, like, if you do something this egregious, you're going to be called out for it.
Yeah, so let me just, to your point about the quote-unquote comparable story of Geno and Baker, here's where I disagree with that. Because Geno Smith was a backup who came into this league as a second-round pick, and you could see a second-round quarterback becoming a backup. But he turns his career around, future Ring of Honor guy, that's my guy, I'm not going to argue. Baker Mayfield, former first overall pick, on his old team, he gutted through a shoulder injury where after being cast off by his team, who even got rid of him later than they could have and should have. I think we remember that timeline. Like, it was weird that they still had him on the roster for as long as they did before they got rid of him. That organization drug his name through the mud. A guy who played injured, played through an injury for you in a sport where you are looked down upon if you don't play through certain injuries that you could technically play through. He played through that for that team. They critiqued him. They did not have this back. They cast this dude off to the side. He goes to Carolina. Horrible stuff in Carolina. Again, Justin's guy, Matt Rule, on the Justin Fires a Coach yearly show.
He was up and down in Carolina. I mean, he was also, he started off better than people thought he would be, and then he got injured.
I don't even think he got traded to the Rams. Was he get traded? Or I think they just cut him. The Panthers did, and the Rams just picked him up for the end of the season so they could have a quarterback actually take some snaps. He finishes off the season with the Rams, comes into Tampa. What did every single one of us say when it came to his time in Tampa? Last chance saloon. This is your last shot as a former #1 overall pick. That is a massive difference from a second rounder having to do that. And this is the definition of Geno Smith as a backup quarterback. If he didn't shine the way he did in Seattle last year, let's be real here. He probably still is in the league for a few more years, just as a backup. Okay. Baker, people were talking about the fact that the dude was going to be out of the league if he did nothing this season. And he played. Look, do I agree that the NFC South was basically a charity division this year? Yes. But at the end of the day, someone from that division made the postseason. And of that group, Baker Mayfield played the best quarterback play in that division. Like, a guy who I think we all probably ranked lower than Derek Carr going into this season. I think Saints fans would take Baker Mayfield over Derek Carr right now.
I think so.
I think Panthers fans would have liked Baker Mayfield this season compared to Bryce Young.
Mm-hmm.
I think, who's the last team? The Falcons. Oh, my God. Baker Mayfield on the Falcons. They probably get 10, 11 wins. Desmond Ridder was awful.
Yeah.
Shout out Taylor Heineke. He didn't really get a proper shot this season.
You.
Arthur Smith is an idiot. But that being said.
That's my guy right there.
Like, if you weren't, at the end of the day, the voters, whatever we want to say, it's not that they didn't give it to him on purpose, whatever. If DeMar Hamlin wasn't going to be the guy to win this award, if you were going to give this to someone that wasn't him, it should have been Baker over Flacco. Like, I'm all for memes. I thrive on memes. Like the whole Joe Flacco coming back from playing with the Jets last season and then coming back from the couch being better and clearly more traumatizing than X, Y, and Z. I get the joke is funny. The dude didn't play the whole season. Do we need to institute a games requirement on these awards now, just like
I
they're
think we
doing in the
should.
NBA? Like
I think we should.
this is wild. This is
Yeah.
absolutely absurd to me.
I think we should.
Like if you were not going to give it to DeMar, you give it to the wrong quarterback.
Now, I understand this voting happens at the very end of the season, right?
Yes.
So if you're talking about recency bias, where like, oh, Flacco came in the last 4 or 5 games, he played lights out football, and he led the league in yards passing in those 5 weeks, I kind of get it, but here's the thing. If that's your basis, why are you an NFL writer for the Associated Press?
Yeah,
if you're only watching 5 weeks.
You can't just use the last 5 weeks of the season to decide that award. And
No.
I repeat my statement: your vote should be taken away from you. Like you are giving and even for comeback player of the year, like obviously it doesn't hold the same to someone's next contract negotiation as the other awards we've discussed. I understand that, but in that same credence, with all pro votes, with Pro Bowl, with awards, you are given these votes. You have an obligation to do your dang research.
Yep.
And on a yearly basis, in all 4 sports, we could do this about it. Remember a couple years ago when someone gave Zion a first place vote in the NBA Rookie of the Year race?
How about the damn Baseball Hall of Fame voting? When you see like one guy get a random vote, that's one vote.
100%. But especially the Zion one to me is the one that forever has turned me off against a lot of sports awards voters, where the dude literally said, well, he's the first overall pick, so I'm going to give him the award. I hope that dude is never allowed to vote ever again, basically. So like you cannot use this simple-minded table varnish smooth brain analysis when it comes to that. Save the table varnish smooth brain stuff for me. All right? Yeah. You are being paid to write. Well, we assume you're writing and not using AI. You are paid to write. You're paid to write. You're paid to give breakdown. You're paid to vote. You're paid for this stuff. Even if you're not being directly paid to do it, you have the gravitas, the honor of being an award voter. Do your job and do the due diligence. And if you're not willing to do that, if it's too much for you, well, go off a cliff, buddy. We don't care if it's too much for you. Give that award to someone that actually deserves it. Utterly ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous.
Yeah, look, it's a thing that we have to come to. I mean, like I said, I know we had discussions about DeMar probably was winning this award, and he rightfully, I think, of DeMar or Flacco, I think DeMar would be hands down 10 times out of 10 my pick over Joe Flacco.
Yeah,
we had discussions about Baker Mayfield being a better option, but you're right. This is kind of the call to the NFL to make 2 separate awards, Like you want to be a league that's all about caring and concern for your players nowadays, add an award that highlights that. Guys that come back from off the field stuff, it's a joke, but Calvin Ridley getting a vote for coming back from gambling.
That's ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
That's absurd.
I'm sorry. And again, these other guys, what did they come back from? A hangnail? What did Aaron Donald come back from? Turf toe? Fine, I get it. That's a bad injury, but dude, you didn't come back from what is this?
That's being lazy. And again, it just goes to show that it's that and for people saying it's well, would you really be able to do that for every single year? Yes, I promise you. If we look at the last decade, I'm sure there's one comeback player of the year player that we could base just off the field stuff happening. Absolutely. I promise you that can happen, bro.
Absolutely.
So it's one of these things where the league will never view this as a problem, and especially not something that they need to address. So it's not going to happen. But this is one of those cases. I promise you, even people there, for us specifically, if we're going to accept the fact that they didn't give DeMar the award, they didn't give it to the right player that wasn't him. And There are going to be people that don't like the fact that he didn't get the award. You somehow screwed it up both ways. This is phenomenal. They screwed up both ways. They didn't give it to the guy that we all expected it, and probably, none of us were going to argue if he would have gotten it. We wouldn't have spent the last 7 minutes talking about this award if that was the case. Yep. And yet you somehow, not only did you give it to that guy who some people think shouldn't have gotten it, you gave it to the wrong quarterback.
Can I use the example we're all thinking of here? Cody Rhodes won the Rumble. So the obvious choice here is you go against Roman Reigns.
Yes.
And then that swerve happened that made you think, no, wait, he's going to go after Seth Rollins. And then in the back of my head, I said to myself, what if he goes to NXT? What if he goes down there instead? What if that's the way the writing goes?
Win the championship of the brand that your daddy helped start.
Well, I mean, finishing the story in different ways. Speaking of finishing,
NFL MVP. Let's get to it.
we got to talk about this one too, because this is a bit of an interesting one.
This is the one that Justin was looking forward to pre-show. So, Justin,
Yeah.
it's all yours once Rick gives the voting breakdown.
So you were allowed to have 5 votes: 10, 5, 3, 2, 1. Myles Garrett had 1 fifth place vote, so 1 point. Matthew Stafford had 2 fourth place votes for 4 points. CJ Stroud tied for him with 4 points. He had 4 fifth place votes. Patrick Mahomes, 2 third, 2 fourth, 2 fifth, 12 points. Tyreek Hill, 2 second, and then from there, 60 points. Lamar Jackson did win this award with 49 out of 50 first place votes. But do you want to know where he was on that last ballot? 3rd. It's reported that Aaron Schatz, who is now the new Adam Rank of this podcast, not only did he not have Lamar Jackson 2nd, he had Josh Allen 1st and Dak Prescott 2nd to Lamar Jackson.
I want to get him on the show.
Prescott, by the way, finished 2nd overall with 152 points, higher than Christian McCaffrey, who had 147, who was higher than Brock Purdy, who was 4th with 97. Josh Allen finished 5th with 80 total points, including 1 first place vote. This is like when you vote for the top 25 in college basketball, and that 6th place team has 1 vote randomly, and you don't know why. Why are you voting for Creighton over Kentucky? Like, why? They're 22-0. Come on now.
Oh man, it just.
I want Justin to run this now, because I gave you the numbers and I'm fuming.
We had our spiel, Justin. You carry this one off.
Look, I'm a Lamar guy. Here's the thing. This is going to come off very anti-Lamar Jackson. People will remember I picked him as our MVP last year.
Yep.
I thought he was going to have a great year. I've expected great things from this kid. It kills me that they lost last week, because realistically, I mean, I know he had a lot of turnovers at the end, but he was clearly trying to force everything. They could not get anything going offensively. Well, I mean, even really defensively in the beginning of that game. They're not. He's not the reason that they lost in the AFC Championship game, in my mind. That being, I mean, Lamar Jackson was really, really good, and he was the best player on the best team. Was he top 5 in any major stats? Honestly, like again, they won, and he was the best player on that team. Sure. What did he do statistically? How was he better than Tua, who led the league in passing and had how many more touchdowns than him? Let's see, 5 more touchdowns than him, and one of the best completion percentages. I'm sorry, quarterback ratings we've seen in a season in a long time. I mean, Jared Goff. The Lions were an excellent team, and they got screwed out of being one of the top teams in the NFL this year, because they got screwed in a couple of games by the refs. He had 4,500 yards and 30 touchdowns. You know, there's guys that were that good this year. And as much as you want to say, like, Lamar deserved it, and again, I'm not saying he didn't deserve it. And you also, as a quarterback, I get that you have to take into account the rushing yards that are hard to account for when you're talking about a quarterback. I mean, I'm looking for it now. He had 800 rushing yards and 5 rushing touchdowns. Yeah, that's great. And Lamar is a great quarterback, and he's a great dual threat, and all of that stuff. But even if you add it together, he didn't have the same total yardage. And I mean, I guess it gets closer, but like, I don't know. There's something about Lamar this season that him winning the MVP kind of just didn't sit perfectly with me. Like, again, it's not something that I can outright say I'm upset with, because again, I'm a Lamar Jackson guy. When there was a rumor that he was getting traded to the Jets, I was ecstatic. I really was like, I mean, it only lasted like a day, but I was. And for him, after everything that went down this season, and again, I'm not going to account for playoffs or anything like that because technically you're not really supposed to. But I'm not sure he was the best guy in the league this year. I'm not sure he was the most valuable player because realistically, if you put a different quarterback on that team, maybe they don't win the AFC, but they're a playoff team. I mean, that defense was nasty. That defense was absolutely tearing teams down. I mean, the way they shut down San Francisco was, or the way they shut down Miami was nasty. I mean, they shut down some of the top offenses. And I know there were times where they started slow. And maybe there were some games that they shouldn't have won. I mean, that they should have won and they didn't end up winning. But again, those were mostly earlier in the season. When they got healthy, they were a good, complete team. And all right, maybe if they weren't as good, Lamar's stats would be better because he would have played a little bit more in the fourth quarter and he would have had to do more. But I don't know. And look, you guys are gonna be mad, but Dak had such a good year. If it wasn't for like one or two games down the stretch where he kind of didn't show up, to me, he would have been a clear-cut MVP. Like, it's not even close. What was the last game of the year, or the in the last like two games they lost like 2 of 3 or something like that, and he just wasn't good. I think it was the Bills game.
Yeah,
was a rough one.
Yep.
And
the Dolphins one, he didn't play up to his standard.
Yeah, and if it wasn't for those two games, like if he would have came out and did his average instead of his below average, I don't think that you're talking about Lamar winning MVP right now. You're not. It's Dak Prescott won the MVP. And then you're making all the jokes that, oh, that's the only trophy the Cowboys are going to win this year, blah, blah, blah. That's a different story.
I mean,
and it's just as good as Lamar was this year, I don't think it's as clear-cut as 49-50.
Oh, no. That's too deep. And actually, I did the math while you were talking, Justin. So if you add Lamar's rushing yards to his passing yards, and you just keep it strictly at that compared to the other QBs, his total yardage was only 4th in the league if you compare it to just the passing yards of the QBs.
And that's not even really considering other quarterbacks' rushing yards. I mean, they do other things. You know what I mean? Like,
no, I know.
Josh Allen had a good rushing year. He wasn't.
I'm saying
yards, but
Lamar's supposed to be like excellent at, arguably the best of all the dual threat QBs. You combine his total yardage, he doesn't even get into the top 3 just looking at the passing yards of the QBs. So it's like,
and just to as much as I don't like this to defend Josh Allen a little bit, I don't necessarily think he was I mean, sure, he had a few too many turnovers. He forced 1 or 2 balls down the field and it didn't work out right. Was the only reason that team was relevant because they were falling apart in a lot of places. And all of a sudden, down the stretch, they were like the Bills of old. And they were like, I don't think I want to play this team in the playoffs. And really, the only team that I think would have probably knocked them out would have been the Chiefs or the Ravens. I don't think that any other team would have had a chance to do so. He was really, really good for the most of this. The only thing that is an issue to me is the 18 interceptions. It's a little too much. But I mean, if he would have had 14 interceptions, it's only 4 different.
Well, I will say this in terms of the winning streak they had at the end, and again, this is why wins are not a quarterback stat. I think if you go like through his game log after the Philly game, let's go just after the Philly game, the 5-game win streak they had to end the season against the Chiefs, 20-17 victory, 233 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Against the Cowboys in that blowout of a win. He didn't need to do much, but 94 passing yards, only 1 touchdown. Win against the Chargers
after the first half in that game.
Yeah, basically. So Chargers game, full game, right? 237 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Game against the Patriots, 169 yards, nice, but 0 touchdowns thrown, 1 interception, 2 rushing touchdowns that game. I know there's, but I'm just kind of keeping it like simple here. And then in the last game was the big time performance where he like willed them on that one. 79% completion percentage, 359 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 67 yards on the ground, which I want to say one of those rushes was like a first down late in the game that they needed. I might be misremembering, but to that point, if I don't blame you. I don't blame you for thinking Josh Allen could have got more votes, and maybe he should have. But I also don't blame him necessarily not getting as many this season in particular.
Yeah, I'm not sitting here and saying he should have gotten first place votes over Lamar.
Yeah.
I'm taking Lamar 10 times out of 10 this season.
Oh yeah.
On Josh Allen. That being said, I feel like a lot of people are going to give him a lot of flack for what happened during the season. And let's face it, I mean, I don't think they were up to his standards, but you can't. I'm seeing a lot of LeBron effect this year. And I am sure that some people hate that term, but LeBron James should have been the MVP like 15 times in the NBA. And because he's LeBron James and he didn't do something that was literally, record breaking for the year that he didn't win, and they gave it to someone else. Like, that's the reason that, like, we want to sit here and say Sean McVay didn't deserve a ton of coaching credit this year. That team was ass last year. They were bad. And then they cut all of the big name players that were making a ton of money. And they had almost no depth. If anything, Les Snead should be up for GM of the year. I don't know if he's been there, but
I have to imagine
probably Jimmy Haslam won it because Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, but like I'm saying, like,
I mean, he's not an executive.
just because Sean McVay has won a Super Bowl and he's been like the hot coach for so long doesn't mean that what he did this year isn't remarkable. He was an excellent coach this year. I would say, about half the reason that they made it that far, and the other half happens to be the four guys by the name of Aaron Donald, Matt Stafford, Cooper Kupp, and Puka Nacua. There's other guys too, but those were the main contributors in my mind.
So, incidentally, just to go off of that, what you just said, Brad Holmes won Executive of the Year for the Lions.
That's fair.
Very, very fair.
That's fair.
Let me light a match here and roll away. As I do.
This will be the last point because we got to move on.
The Associated Press is a newswire organization. So when you have a newswire, what happens is you try and put the top points of the story in the first one or two sentences. And so when you have an NFL recap on the Associated Press newswire, the top one or two sentences talks about how the quarterback played and what the score was. And I guarantee you, in all the Ravens recaps of their wins, everyone started off with Lamar Jackson did this, therefore the Ravens won the game. Because if there was ever a time for a Christian McCaffrey or a non-quarterback to win the award, this was the year to do it. And the fact that he didn't even sniff second, like, yeah, fine. Prescott had a good year. Woohoo, go you, Adam Shine. Blech. Like, the fact of the matter is, this was the year, because we even said it, there was no clear-cut quarterback standout or no clear-cut anybody standout. So McCaffrey winning the Offensive Player of the Year is the consolation prize in this whole thing. It's like, congratulations, you win the lesser than, the junior belt. Pat on the head. Congratulations, kid. But the AP, those voters, need to do more research and stop reading the first sentence on the wire that says Lamar Jackson threw for this many yards and a touchdown, because that is why he got 49 first place votes. Like, Aaron Schatz, I'll say it, like, I give you kudos for putting Lamar Jackson third. I may not give you kudos for how you voted prior to that, but, like, come on, people. Like, do more research. Use this. This right here is your brain. It's very good. I guarantee you.
This may have been the, like, I honestly want to say, without even having the knowledge, of course, but this may have been, you could argue, one of probably the lazier years for some of the sports voters. I would, for these NFL awards, I would say so. Like, yes, for some of these awards, we say they got it right, but that doesn't, like, pat on the back. Like, Todd Bowles, you won your division this year, but you had a chance to win, as we talked about on this podcast, and he, for whatever reason, just thought it wasn't the right thing to call timeouts. Dan Campbell, you won the division, won 2 playoff games. That's amazing. You could have done more. It's one of those things where it's like, yes, you got some of the awards right, but man, when you missed, or you just didn't, like, I'm with Justin. Even if at the end of the day, Lamar was going to be the MVP this season, and to Justin's point, he said Lamar was his pick last season. Lamar was Lamar/Joe Burrow was basically my pick this season. I said give the MVP most potentially to whichever QB gets their first seed in the AFC North. Like that was my idea going into the season. That because
who my pick was this year. Was it Tua?
may have been.
Might have been Tua.
But irregardless, like when it comes to that, and Justin kind of mentioned the Mahomes effect of, or like the LeBron effect. Now I think you could take it with Mahomes.
You could say Mahomes effect. That's fine.
Well, yeah.
I don't like LeBron. That's why. I don't care either way. I mean,
no, I get what you mean. But like, it's one of those things where it's like we're looking for new awards. Now, to be fair, Mahomes was not the most valuable player this season. I don't think he necessarily played like it the entire time. He had some bad games, but in a year where Mahomes has a down year, in a year where there wasn't a definitive standout QB from start to finish, there were pockets. Dak Prescott had his 4, 5, 6 weeks. Who else am I forgetting? Lamar, of course, had his stretch. I'm sure Brock Purdy had his stretch. In a season where it could have been more unique and more fun, the voters just chose to be lazy. And again, you have this power. You have this voting power. Like, we don't take away MVP awards in this league. We don't take away championships. We don't take away offensive defense player. This stuff doesn't get taken away. These guys, some of them, might get immortalized in the Hall of Fame one day, and it will stand there that they won these awards. And I know we always say that time ultimately ends up being the fact that time ends up making us forget about some of this stuff. And 20 years from now, we'll be like, oh, yeah, Lamar Jackson. He was the MVP of 2023. I think we're starting to get into a different age here, man, where I think conversation and argumentation is going to continue, where I don't think even 10 years from now, we're going to look back at 2023 and say Lamar was the MVP. I think there's still going to be arguments about this, saying that someone else could have and should have gotten that award this season. Or even if it doesn't play out differently, it shouldn't have been, by perception, that different. Lamar was not 48 first place votes greater than the number 2 compared to just first place votes. There was not a 48 first place vote difference between Lamar and that second person. There was not. There just was not. So be better is the tagline on the show. Be better refs, be better award voters, be better everything. Just be better, man. The three of us try to be better in, yeah, honestly, the three of us try to be better every single day when it comes to stuff. Like, come on. So that being said, not fully done here. We did a lot more award talking than I thought we would. So let's quickly go to the Hall of Fame class here real quick before we get to the main event of the evening. And a beautiful evening it is right now. Well, it's cold out there, I'm sure, but at least it's not raining or snowing because that's been hitting the Northeast here and there. The Hall of Fame class of 2024, ladies and gentlemen, for the NFL. 2 senior players getting in terms of the voting. Steve Mongo McMichael gets in, and Randy Gradishar get in. So congratulations to those 2 gentlemen, of course. I like the senior votes that get in. Like, I don't think any of the 3 of us, we're not really going to go down into the depths of everything to try to argue that. They get in, no issue. Now, the new guys. This is where it gets interesting, boys. 5 gentlemen getting in to the Hall of Fame class this year. 5 first ballot boys. Those men are Patrick Willis, glowingly. And we did our Hall of Fame list weeks ago, ladies and gentlemen. You could go back and watch that episode. So Patrick Willis, someone definitive sweep on this between the 3 of us. Hall of Fame. Julius Peppers, definitive sweep between the 3 of us. Hall of Fame. Andre Johnson. I think he was a sweep between the 3 of us, if I'm not mistaken, right? Yeah, Hall of Fame. No, he wasn't.
He wasn't initially, but then I think I switched. I gave it.
We convinced Rick otherwise.
I was a little bit of a stickler on the wide receivers, but yeah.
Dwight Freeney. It took a little bit. I think he was one of the guys we may have had to go back through, but Dwight Freeney was added in. And my boy, the return man himself, Devin Hester, Hall of Fame. So those 5 are in the Hall of Fame class. I would just like to say real quick, because I know Justin took the time to find this out. So this was in the Atlanta Constitution back in 2007, Rick, that Justin put in the private chat. We'll say this for the people. Some guy writing for the Atlanta Constitution Journal was pissed that LeBron didn't take part in the 2007 Slam Dunk Contest, and he will never vote for LeBron for MVP ever again.
I didn't put that in. Rick put that in.
Yeah, I put that in.
Oh, my bad. I completely misread that.
That's okay. I left. I literally just noticed it also, and I was like,
look at that. So all credit to the Podfather himself. That's why he's the Pick Challenge champion this year, ladies and gentlemen.
I give him credit. You,
hey, Rick, flash the trophy.
Trophy. Yes, right. Yeah. There you
go. Poor Justin, he's gonna have to deal with this.
I do also want to say that going in the last year's NFL Hall of Fame class was 9 people.
Mm-hmm.
This year's is 7.
Yeah.
So the numbers are never really exact.
It's inconsistent. It could vary from year to year.
I know we had discussed kind of what the voting protocol would be, and I believe once you got down to the finalists, it became like a yes/no vote, and you had to get a majority.
Mhm.
So that means that of the finalists, there were 10 guys that got no votes.
Yes. 10
Like-
first-timers specifically.
Yeah, like an Antonio Gates didn't get a first ballot, which is interesting to me. You know,
So I still kept it saved. So the list of guys who we had talked about weeks back on the show that were up for potential slots that did not get in because they did not get a majority. Eric Allen, Jared Allen. So the Allens completely shut out. Willie Anderson, Deacon Barber. I mean, not really surprising. Anquan Bolden, Jari Evans, London Fletcher, Antonio Gates, Eddie George, James Harrison. That's the one that surprised. James Harrison. Rodney Harrison. Devin Hester got in. Torrey Holt, Robert Mathis, which we were having that conversation between Freeney and Mathis when it came to ours, who would we put in? And I think the three of us eventually put Mathis in. Scrolling back up, I think we put both of them in actually. If I'm not
those were the semifinalists. They came out with the finalists a little bit later.
Right. But I'm saying is like compared to our semifinalist list, like just who was there and who's moved on since. So like some of the names, like Steve Smith Sr., Julius Peppers, there was a good chunk of names that whether they made it past the semifinalists to the finalists or if they did eventually now become in trainees, like a good chunk of names that were not there this year that is going to make for very interesting Hall of Fame voting years. Because to me, I think this is my simplest way to say it, guys. Hall of Fame lists are going to be really tough the next couple of years because you're going to have a good chunk of talented guys that are first ballots up for the first time. And then you're going to have some guys that are now entering year 2 or year 3 on the ballots that should get in at some point. There's going to be a lot of interesting Hall of Fame induction classes over the next coming years, I think.
Do you want to hear the first time eligibility guys for next year, according to Adam Schefter?
I can only imagine.
Eli Manning, Luke Kuechly, Adam Vinatieri, Terrell Suggs, Marshall Yanda, Marshawn Lynch, Earl Thomas, Joe Staley, the late Demaryius Thomas, Aqib Talib, Vernon Davis, Darren Sproles, and Cameron Wake. I
mean, I will say this. Those first 3 names you said, they're getting in.
Well, Vinatieri's obviously getting in.
Of course. I swear to God, if he doesn't get in first, there's going to be a problem on this program.
But that just shows how stacked next year's going to be. Like, I'll give it to baseball again. We talk, like, if you didn't get in this year, like, who's going to be the guy next year? Next year's Ichiro's ballot. There's nobody else that I would say that's, like, eligible. So the guys that missed this past year, like, Billy Wagner missed by 6 votes.
Right.
He's going to get in next year. Easily. You can't say that about the NFL, about the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Not at all.
Because the guys that missed, Torrey Holt, Rodney Harrison, Aaron Woodson, the Allens, Jari Evans, Willie Anderson.
Vince Wilfork, Reggie Wayne.
Right. That are not going up against Eli, Kuechly, Vinatieri, Earl Thomas, Joe Staley.
There's a chance that some of these guys that were able to make it this year, like they don't get anything next year. Like NFL is a sport where your ballot could go down from your first year because there's just so much more coming in.
Yeah.
So it's there's going to be some stack classes. We're going to have a lot of guys slip through the cracks over the next
how long
years.
Drew Pearson took to get into the Hall of Fame.
100%. Like that's
somebody's going to be the next Drew Pearson and then wait 30 plus years. And then unfortunately,
I think
guys are
multiple guys,
get in
Rick,
after they're dead.
Yeah, unfortunately. I think multiple guys, honestly, on some of these. Like it's morbid for that last point, but it's the God's honest truth. Like there's been so much talent to come through this league over the last like 10, 15 years. When you consider like how these guys, when they came in, they played now their careers being over. Like we're talking like full circle mode for the show. We had a Patrick Willis versus Luke Kuechly conversation as a would you rather for one of Justin's would you rathers.
Yeah.
And now Luke Kuechly's coming up next year. We said that it was this much of a difference between the two when we talked about them in that would you rather. Well, Willis just got in first ballot. I'd be shocked if Luke Kuechly doesn't get in first ballot. Like,
yeah, I'd love to know the justification if you don't put Kuechly in first ballot, because Patrick Willis got in, and they're basically the same player who had the same stats that played in the same years that were dominant their position.
Yep, both defensive player of the years at the linebacker, both absolutely tackling machines, both being key cogs to teams that made it to the Super Bowl.
Now, if you don't want to see David Tepper go to the Hall of Fame, I understand that.
No,
But,
I mean, yes, but I mean, we can have a healthy medium. Vote Luke Kuechly in, ban David Tepper from the Hall of Fame. I think we can do both of those things.
I like that. I'm a fan of that.
But just ban him from Canton, Ohio. I don't think they'll miss him.
No,
Or Ohio as a whole.
Canton's a nice town. You don't want David Tepper getting in there and ruining it.
Absolutely not. Lord knows what real estate he'll find there to screw it up and leave it for that town to suffer afterwards. Just like he did.
He's like the Jim Balsillie of the NFL.
Just like he did with the Panthers. So that being said, that's my thoughts. You have your thoughts. Justin, anything add to wrap up this conversation?
No.
I think Justin's just happy about the fact that neither Patriots guy got in on this ballot.
Yes and no. I mean, there are certain guys. I mean, I don't want to be a hater.
No, I know. No, how about this? No, this isn't being a hater. All three of us right now, from the list, and again, maybe one of the guys we'll name here, from the list of semifinalists that we did, if you could pick any of the guys, whether they made it to the finalists or not, on this ballot, any of the guys that did not become an inductee from who we voted for, like we could all only have one pick of who didn't get into this class that we feel should have. Who would you select?
Can you say them again real quick?
Yes, I got you. And let's also try, we'll be congruent next to each other. So if one of us says one name, let's have the other two say someone else if we can. So Eric Allen, Jared Allen, Willie Anderson, Tiki Barbara, Anquan Bolden, Jari Evans, London Fletcher, Dwight Freeney got in, Antonio Gates, Eddie George, James Harrison, Rodney Harrison, Devin Hester got in, Torrey Holt, Audrey Johnson got in, Robert Mathis, Julius Peppers got in, Steve Smith Sr., Fred Taylor, Hines Ward, Ricky Waters, Reggie Wayne, Vince Wilfork, Patrick Willis got in, Darren Woodson.
Look, for my money, as I said, Torrey Holt's got to be in the Hall of Fame. He's got to be. He's like the forerunner to these other great receivers, man. Put the guy in. It's been too long.
Yeah, and
yeah.
If you want to talk about forerunners as well,
go for it.
Go, Justin. Go.
I was going to say the same thing, but I mean, the other one in my mind, at least offensively, Antonio Gates. I mean, to me, how he wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer after what he's done at that position is, I mean, you want to argue that he's not the greatest tight end of all time. I mean, okay, what, top 5? I mean, he was something, and he was for so long in the same place, so consistently good. It's just, I don't know.
And also, you talk about, Rick talks about Torrey Holt being the archetype for today's receiver. Antonio Gates is that for today's tight end. A physical freak of nature. How many of these guys have become that because, you look at, and there was Shannon Sharp before Antonio Gates. Antonio Gates should have gotten it. And if I just have to throw one more name into into our pool here, Jared Allen, 4-time first-team All-Pro, 2-time led the league in sacks, 136 career sacks. I mean, what more does the guy have to do to get in the Hall of Fame first ballot at that point with that kind of resume? That's a pretty good resume right there to keep him out.
The Olympics in curling, which he's trying to do, by the way.
So it's just a tough one there, to say the very least. And we're not going to give the vitriol to the NFL Hall of Fame voting, because obviously, compared to the award voting, it's a lot easier for us to have the information. We have the finalists, of course. It's very easy for us to say that more guys should have gone in. We'll just see how many of these guys will hopefully be getting their just due in future seasons here. And like Rick said, some of these guys are just I think some of the lower names, as I start to get lower on that list, are probably just never going to make the Hall of Fame, or if they do, it's going to be years after the fact. Justin, in his proper objectiveness, spoke very highly of Vince Wilfork in that episode when we did that. Vince Wilfork might be a guy that he does not get in naturally on the ballot. He's going to have to be a senior committee selection years down the line.
I spoke highly of Jari Evans. Similar thing.
This may have been the 1 year. Maybe next year might be the last shot, or if there's a weaker class down the line, which, I mean, who knows what constitutes as a weaker class. Man, oh man, this is going to be intriguing to see. And I feel like a lot of guys are going to feel slighted over the next couple of years. And I'm not going to, well, we gave our opinions, obviously, weeks back of who we move on. I'm not going to definitively say certain guys should or should not be in the Hall of Fame unless it's pretty obvious. Aside from that, like if one of these guys, like if Reggie Wayne says 2-3 years from now, if he's still not in the Hall, he should have been a Hall of Famer. I'm not going to argue against Reggie Wayne. I'm not going to do that. He has a case. It's a very strong case. So, that being said, that wraps it all up. That summarizes the NFL awards and the Hall of Fame class, our reactions to that. So, guys, I bring back up the comment once again. Can the script be wrong? Will the script be wrong? You see the title of the episode. It's time for the analysis. It is the 49ers and Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl rematch. They met score is actually a bigger number. 4 years ago, ladies and gentlemen. We ourselves, not our forefathers, our forefathers as well, but we ourselves watched the Super Bowl occur, and it was the crowning of a new potential dynasty in the league 4 years ago. The first of what at the time, many Super Bowls, and it looks like that could be coming true for Patrick Mahomes, Kansas City Chiefs as a whole. They defeated the San Francisco 49ers. The San Francisco 49ers, after that Super Bowl, that very next season, dealt with a lot of injury issues. Had a pretty high pick. I believe they missed the playoffs as a whole that season. They look to try to get a new quarterback in the future. They look to completely change that team. And there are a lot of differences between these two teams from that Super Bowl onto this one. You think about the Kansas City Chiefs, while a good chunk of that core, the main pieces, the pillars, Andy Reid, still there. Mahomes, still there. Travis Kelce, still there. Of course, Tyreek Hill, from that first Super Bowl to now, not there. But they won it last year without him. That offensive line, different from that first Super Bowl to this one. Probably you'd say fully healthy, this one was better than that one. That defense, the defense of this Kansas City Chiefs team, I think we've been saying one of, if not the best defense that we have seen in this era of Patrick Mahomes, Reid, and Kelce. Because, good Lord, especially the corners on that team. Oh, man, there's some good quarterback play on the Kansas City Chiefs. This is an amazing team. The San Francisco 49ers, a lot more changes when you look at some of the roster construction of this team. It was a young, I believe, rookie Nick Bosa, if I'm not mistaken, when the San Francisco 49ers made it to the Super Bowl 4 years ago. A younger Fred Warner on that team. A team whose quarterback, yes, ladies and gentlemen, Jimmy Garoppolo, who has since been removed from that team. The man who was supposed to be his successor, removed from the team because it's time. It's big clock. Brock's time, many might believe. And, of course, they have more dynamic running back there with Christian McCaffrey, this year's Offensive Player of the Year. You have a Deebo Samuel who is leaps and bounds from the player he was then. Brandon Ayuk, who I don't know if he was on that team 4 years ago. I don't believe he was. And if he was, he had a much lesser role. George Kittle was emerging 4 years ago, is probably the number 2 or number 3 tight end in the league, depending on how you want to rank it. Probably number 2, most people would say, comparatively to Travis Kelce. Offensive line is a little bit different from 4 years ago. I believe Joe Staley was on that team 4 years ago. Trent Williams is on this team. Again, my timeline might be a little bit mixed up because some big things happened after that Chiefs-Niners Super Bowl, ladies and gentlemen, in case you may not have realized that over the last 4 years. But with that being said, boys, I'm just going to throw the analysis straight to each of you first. So I'm going to throw it to Justin first here. Justin, we talked about these teams and their victories last week. Now let's talk about the teams themselves. The San Francisco 49ers, the top team in the NFC this season, seeding-wise, versus the Kansas City Chiefs. They were... God, I have brain fog. Second or third, boys, this season were the Chiefs.
Third place.
Third place, correct. Yes, because it was back-to-back away games that they had to win to get to this spot. The first proper away games in Mahomes' playoff career because, the Super Bowl's a neutral site. Though you could kind of argue that Tampa Bay won because Tampa Bay was there. It was in Tampa Bay. Proper away games. Chiefs won both of them into the Super Bowl. 49ers facing deficits in the second half of the last of these two playoff games, especially in the fourth quarter of that Packers one. Winning both of them. So both teams, questions about them and what they couldn't do or what the perception was that they couldn't do were answered. The Chiefs won on the road in the postseason, and the San Francisco 49ers in back-to-back games came back in the second half to win. That was a massive Achilles heel for Kyle Shanahan and this team throughout his tenure with the 49ers. So there's a lot to say. Justin, throwing it to you first. Your thoughts on these two teams going into this one?
I can't argue. To me, the two best teams this year were the Ravens and the 49ers. And if you really want to be nitpicky about it, unfortunately, in the most disgusting way possible, the Chiefs were somehow the second best team in the AFC. I mean, you want to make an argument that it was somebody else. Maybe the Dolphins, but the way they fell off and the Chiefs came out at the end of the year and the fact that they could not beat them, I'm giving the edge to the Chiefs. Do you want to say the Bills? Same thing. The Bills were spotty and they weren't the same consistently winning team that the Chiefs were. And again, I'm just talking in the AFC right now, but it's going to be a good matchup. I don't think a lot of people that are only going to tune in for the Super Bowl and haven't really watched a ton of football this year are going to watch it and be like, wow, this is a great game, because I don't necessarily think you're going to see a ton of these big plays. I mean, all the big play guys are really, for the most part, on San Francisco, and they're playing a very good defense in this Chiefs team, a defense that's firing on all cylinders, and a defense that's extremely, extremely well coached by Steve Spagnuolo on the other side. So they're going to be young, they're going to be fast, they're going to be in Brock Purdy's face, and I don't really expect to see a lot of points outside of maybe early in the first quarter and then in the late third and fourth quarter. Like, I think there's going to be large stretches in this game where you don't see a ton of offensive action, much to what the NFL will be crying about. But I'm not thinking we're seeing the game that we saw the first matchup. I'm thinking more along the lines of that Patriots-Rams Super Bowl. Maybe not to that extreme, but I don't see a ton of points getting scored in this game. I'm excited to see my preseason pick make it. At least I got something this year, But it's been all downhill since 4 plays into Monday night.
Okay. That's how it goes sometimes, brother. But no, I think that's some good analysis right there, Justin. Like, for the skill position talent in San Francisco, and for just the man, the myth, the legend himself on Kansas City, that's signal calling their way through. And of course, that all-time tight end right there. When we were talking about Antonio Gates in the all-time conversation just now, this is probably one of the guys you would put above him in that combo when it comes to Travis Kelce. Like with all the weapons there are, like you said, this could be. And honestly, that Chiefs-Niners game from years ago, it took a little bit to get. Like, the Chiefs had 10 points with 6.5, 7 minutes left. That's when they made that run. That San Francisco defense held for 80, 85% of that game, but it was that last 15, 20% where they just weren't able to finish it off. So that could very, and I get what, like, the comparison that you're making with the Rams Patriots Super Bowl. Like, it's funny because remember, there's been 2 of them, Justin, and that first one ended on a field goal at the very end. So you could have been alluding to that this entire time. So I see what you're doing there on that one. But no, I'm with you. Like, this, I don't think this will be in a playoffs that has, like, really, aside from a handful of matchups, been low scoring to an extent. There were a couple of high scoring games throughout, but there were some low scoring ones, to say the least, in the postseason. It's been a case where a lot of these games have been, low to mid scoring, and just the team that wins is able to pull it away in somewhat convincing manner. So that could be the case here, where I think, and Rick, you mentioned this, I think, in 2-3 select games in this postseason. I'll throw this idea to you. Do you think the team that gets the lead by the end of the first half here is probably just going to end up winning it? Because if the Chiefs have the first half here, do you trust San Fran to come back? And then if the Niners are actually able to build up a first half here, do you not think they finally are able to put pedal to the metal and make a run of it?
Well, something I think has to give on both sides. I think we vastly, and this isn't just us, I think the general scope of NFL, reporters and everybody else have vastly underrated the Chiefs' defense. Because, George Karlaftis and Omenahu and Adodike Uzama on the D-line, Chris Jones as well. Even like their linebacking core, which I think is Bolton, and those guys, and Drew Tranquil in the secondary. Like, this is a sneaky good Chiefs defense.
Snead and McDuffie, man. Those two are.
Snead and McDuffie, man. Those guys are phenomenal. And yet on the other side, too, the Niners defense is also, like, the heavy hitters, the Bosas, the Greenlaws, the Werners, the guys in the secondary, Diamador Lenore, who, yes, is still a real person, even though last year we thought it was a fake name. But
Charvarius Ward, by the way, former Kansas City Chiefs, is the star corner of that Niners secondary.
And remember this too, Chase Young is on this team also. Remember that. So the defenses here, to Justin's point, the defenses here are stout. And yeah, I mean, as good as the offense has been on both sides, look, I'm I'm not predicting a first half leader here. I'm thinking we're going to get tied going to the locker room. I don't know the score. I won't say. I'm not sure, but to me, it's a chess match that's going to come down to one key mistake. Like it's cliche, but it always comes down to that one key mistake. And what could that mistake be? If you're the Chiefs, do the drops come back? Because remember how the season started for them. The drops against Detroit. They couldn't catch a ball to save their life. Will that be the issue? Will there be a defensive lapse? Will there be a key injury that happens in the first quarter that eventually winds its way down? Will there be a ticky-tack penalty called against one of these quarterbacks? Because let's be real here, this is also the culmination of the season where we've seen a lot of roughing the passer penalties that we look back on and said, that's not roughing the passer, that's a tackle through the quarterback. But this is Brock Purdy and Patrick Mahomes. These are two marketable guys, or if you're in that market, supposedly, Patrick Mahomes and Lee Harvey Oswald. I don't know where you get that comparison from, ridiculous media. But the fact of the matter is that a team that leads this game by the end of the first half, yeah, I could see that team coasting, going wire to wire. I could see there being no surprising twists and turns. I could see it. But I also believe that these two teams going into this game are probably about as evenly matched as you could think. I mean, the shortcomings that the Niners have in the quarterback game because of how Brock Purdy is inexperienced compared to Patrick Mahomes. I mean, Christian McCaffrey, I would take him over Isaiah Pacheco. Pacheco's been great, but I would take McCaffrey over Pacheco in a heartbeat. The wide receiving core, fairly the same. I mean, I would take the Niners because they have a little more experience, but Kittle versus Kelsey, I think that's a pretty even matchup. The offensive line, both sides, pretty good. What's it going to come down to? It might come down to the fact that the Niners have a rookie kicker, because do you trust Harrison Butker in a big situation or Jake Moody? That could be where it comes down to. There's a lot of interesting storylines that come into play here, but I'm more thrilled with the root canal and Super 58. But I gotta admit, if you're someone who was watching football and who this is the two teams, it's probably going to be a good game. I mean, I might go to sleep after Usher performs at halftime, but that's just me.
Well, hey, Justin, he has a child that he's taking care of. He's probably tired.
Rick, I'm calling into your fandom. I'm calling into question your fandom again. Who falls asleep? Yeah, exactly. You don't deserve it. You don't deserve it.
Come take it, Justin. You can't take it. You
Up.
can't take it, can you?
I'll show up.
You will never have one of these.
Well, he won't have ours in particular because we put the exact year, so Justin's going to have to order his own next season.
Yeah. No, look. I mean, but again, that Rams Patriots, the second one, not the first one that had the Vinatieri winning it on a field goal. That second one. What were we doing? We were all just like, what is this game? Hey,
that was a punter's duel, though.
That was a punter's duel. Got it. And you know what? If it is a Tommy Townsend, Mitch Wisnowski type of game, I will be enthralled because those two punters are great.
Then you won't go to the game, really.
No, not a chance.
Well, I think the real question of all our analysis is, what do you guys think of Usher performing at halftime? Do you have high hopes?
No, I don't. I think the only reason why Usher's doing the halftime show is because he has the Vegas residency. Mm-hmm. And so it's just really easy to say, oh, you're in Vegas anyways, so just come over to Allegiant Stadium and do that. But I think there were better performers to get. I mean, he could still put on a good show. He's got some good songs, but a lot of the songs that he has are more for the third hour of a drunken wedding in a pool hall in Venice Beach, California, than in Vegas for football fans, I guess. I don't know.
What a pull there for that one.
Yeah, I was just trying something, man.
Oh, man. Justin, one song that Usher better play to make it a successful halftime, in your opinion?
You're banking on me remembering the names of Usher songs.
This is probably the hardest analysis we've ever had to give on the show, Usher analysis.
I mean, last year we did Rihanna and Super Bowl foods, so we know how to make a Super Bowl show go.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? What are you guys going to be ordering for the Super Bowl?
Yeah, Justin, take some time to think about the song. I'll go with the food.
Your crisis.
We are doing a pretzel rivet buckets, like the little pretzel nuggets. We're doing that here. We have mozzarella sticks and spinach dip and coconut shrimp as well, and some dessert options as well, including a lovely Trader Joe's Chantilly lace vanilla bean cake that I picked up today. So we're gonna be junky pregame and then fancy at the end when no one wants to eat. So
nice.
Yeah.
I have no idea what I'm eating. I'm going out. I will find out whatever they order. Good for me. I'll toss them a few bucks. And I just want to clarify, just because I don't know the names of the songs doesn't mean I didn't grow up loving when Usher came on the radio. Specifically, I really was having a crisis because I was like, there's no way this song is just called Yeah. But it is. But it is. I looked it up. I Googled it. And I was like, I'm going to say his song Yeah. And everyone's going to be like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Well, don't forget, he also has a song called OMG with Will I Am.
That's the song I'm talking about, though.
Yeah.
But yeah. That's
I'm also looking forward
Let It
to
Burn
that.
too. It's good.
Oh, Let It Burn's a good one. Yeah.
In the words of the man LA Knight, yeah. We're gonna be looking forward to that one, to say the very least.
That's what he's referencing, actually.
Yeah, I think.
No, Usher went into the future, saw the LA Knight movement, and then took that back.
I think you're gonna see either DJ Got Us Falling in Love Again or Love in This Club, probably.
Mm-hmm.
You know, older Usher is good, but like I don't think you're gonna see like You Remind Me or True Confessions or whatever. You're gonna see more. It's gonna say more to like his hits, which I think is good. But the thing we don't know also, we don't know if there are any surprises planned. Like, will someone come down from the suite and perform with him as well? Because that's what we need. We need more of who.
I mean, if there are like guest performances,
that'll be a surprise.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, if there are guest performances, like I'll give credit like that hasn't gotten leaked. Honestly, that's going to be the next step of the insiders, like leaking who is going to join the performers at halftime.
Well, they did a good job not leaking the last guest performers too. They said that Dre would be there with Eminem and someone else, but then nobody had 50 Cent. That was a pop.
That's true.
That one did get a pop, 100%. So it should be interesting to say very least. Food wise, for myself, I have one of two options. Basically, I'll just order out from my main spot here, and I'll get food there, or got a nice oven pizza that I can get some garlic knots going. You guys know how the deal goes. We can do that. I'm debating, as stupid as, or maybe from my favorite spot, I'll get pizza from my favorite spot along with garlic. The garlic knots at my favorite food place, by the way, phenomenal. These things, I will say this, best garlic knots I've ever had from any of the pizza spots I've gotten from.
So I got a pizza spot by me, closer to me, that does Zeppelis as well as garlic knots, which are phenomenal. But that's like where we get our pizza pies from. But if we want slices, there's a spot a little further away that does a big ziti slice of pizza that is just chef's kiss, man. It's phenomenal. It really is. You can't go wrong with pizza. Even pizza bagels, you can't go wrong with those.
100%. Like you just can't go wrong with the good stuff. You just can't. So it's going to be one of those things, to say the very least. All right. Over under on the halftime. No, on the national anthem.
No, I was gonna say over under on the appearance. Her. So
I'm gonna say over on the national anthem. I'm gonna do hot take. The national anthem is stretched to 7 minutes.
Okay,
Justin, it's Reba. She's not gonna last 7 minutes.
She's gonna go 7 minutes with an interlude and a guest performance in the middle, and 7 minutes.
God.
Hey man, I will say this. Let me tell you all this, because I worked the game last night. San Francisco versus Pepperdine, right? I'm assuming she's a student. The girl that did the national anthem before that game, if she ever somehow makes her way to the Super Bowl and the Super Bowl national anthem performance, hammer the over. She carried it, like hit the high notes and everything, hit the hold perfectly. Oh my God, that was quite the performance. I was annoyed at the time only because it was 11 p.m. start time last night. I'm a little bit tired.
I have a funny story about that too. There was a time back in 2017. Was it 2017? Yeah, 2017, somewhere around there, when I worked for the pro lacrosse team that was played out here on Long Island at the time. And normally one of the cheerleaders would sing the national anthem, but she called out that day. So I decided I would do it.
I was about to make the joke. Did they call upon you?
No. I decided I would do it just for the hell of it. And I didn't take this into account, but where I was standing at the field, the speakers were at the complete opposite end of the end zone. So the reverb time it took to get back to me was like half a second.
Oh, Lord.
So my anthem that night was like about 2 minutes and 52 seconds. For a minute 25, it took double because God help me, it was rough and I had no earpiece. So, I understand that. I respect that. Here's what I'll say. I'm hitting the over on negative social media comments about Post Malone singing America the Beautiful.
Most likely.
Because this is the society we live in nowadays. Yeah.
I will say, well, all right. We've had a couple of hashtags.
They'll do a great job.
Over the last week. Listen, Rick, let me work here. Over the last week, we've had a number of hashtags. Hashtag we want Cody, which we want Cody, by the way.
We do.
Some people were being Spartaux and said we want Rocky. No, we don't.
Nope.
We want Drew was trending over the last day or so for Drew to win the World Heavyweight title, not the main one. Hashtag we want Podfather Rick. And let's get Rick at the Super Bowl one day to do the anthem. That would be hashtag we want Bullwinkle. Yes.
Well, Rocky, Bullwinkle.
Yeah, I understand. Hashtag we want Podfather Rick. That'll be the greatest accomplishment in show history. Maybe my life's history, if I could somehow get Rick to the national anthem at the Super Bowl.
I do have a secret ambition that actually I will reveal to the world right now that I've had in my head working for a little bit here. I sent out a letter, a postal correspondence letter to the Academy of Motion Pictures and Sciences, saying that for the 100th Academy Awards coming up in about 4 years, do away with these stupid comedian hosts and put the power in the fan, aka me.
Yes.
So I will be the one hosting the Oscars in 4 years for the 100th Academy Awards show. Hopefully, we'll see.
I hope they write you back.
I hope so too. I mean, listen, if Mark Murphy can write back the Green Bay Packers fan who jokingly applied for the DC position, then anything can happen in this world.
I'm saying this. We will read that thing out when you get the response back, Rick.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to read it out. We may have to make sure we can clear it, but we'll read it.
We'll get there.
All right. I've stalled about as much as I probably could stall. Guys, superb owl predictions. Who wants to go first?
Give it to the man in red.
That's true. He's representing both teams here.
Yes.
That's why I did it. Had nothing to do with work today. So I am going to say that the Chiefs bump out into an early lead, and with a final score of 28-24, due to some last minute back and forth, the San Francisco 49ers will win the Super Bowl.
Okay. So Justin has San Fran winning their first title since, I was looking it up earlier,
1995.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a drop there.
Yep.
Could be time. All right, Rick, how do we want to decide this? Do you want to go or should I go?
Well,
no, I'll go.
Yeah. I was gonna say, as the reigning defending
yes.
Pick Challenge champion,
Hall of Champions here. We
going home.
You're home.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're already home.
Empty threat.
Okay. Let me say this for the record. You want to talk about backstory? I have gotten every single Chiefs Super Bowl pick wrong. Excuse me. Since they started making it, I thought the Niners would win last time. The Chiefs won. I thought the Chiefs would beat the Bucks. The Bucks won. I thought last year I picked the Eagles over the Chiefs, and look what happened. So I'm over at this point. So I think it's clearly obvious that whatever I pick to happen is not going to happen. So now I have an interesting power here, boys. Do I pick the Niners because I like seeing dynasties rise? I'm a big history guy. I was going to be a history teacher at one point. Do I pick the Niners so I could see the Chiefs dynasty be fully cemented with the back-to-back? Or do I pick the Chiefs and do I back America and that the Chiefs lose and that Travis Kelce cannot propose to Taylor Swift at the end of the game?
I got news for you. I don't think that most of America's backing San Francisco. I
was
think anyone's happy.
I understand the point, but I think the majority of us are like, can we watch anything else?
No. I know in general
we would want commentating on this game on Nickelodeon instead.
I know in general we would want one of, if not both, these teams to not be in the matchup. But I think comparatively, I think a lot of people would rather Taylor Swift and what's her name, Brittany Mahomes and Jackson Mahomes' team that they're affiliated to because of people that they are related to / in relationships with. I think they would rather have that team lose compared to the team that has made it with Mr. Irrelevant. Just saying.
Quick, would you rather? Who's a better rules expert, Gene Steratore or Dora the Explorer?
Gene Steratore.
Because that's what's going to be. If you go to Nickelodeon, Dora's going to be explaining the rules.
Yeah, maybe it is her. No.
Boy, holding!
So with that being said, what do I pick here, boys? Do I pick Dynasty or do I pick Destiny? I feel like I've been leaning towards Destiny a lot in this postseason, and I keep getting it wrong.
Let's pick Density instead.
That's a good question. That's a good one.
George McFly.
All right. I've made my decision. With a final score of 24-21, the winner and the Super Bowl champion for this year will be... Wait, who did that? Which one of you did that?
They pulled the fire alarm!
That is perfect timing that you cannot make up on this show. I'm going to get this wrong again, aren't I? Give me the San Francisco 49ers to just barely...
If you're going to get it wrong, choose a different team.
Pick the Omaha Nighthawks.
Yeah, right?
So give me the San Francisco 49ers, all but confirming the Chiefs will win back-to-back this year. So, Rick, yours.
Well, unfortunately, for those of you who know, my hand has already been picked based upon selections that I've made over the course of this season. This will be a 10-10 game going into the half. And unfortunately, in the second half, gentlemen, the players are going to play. And the script will say, the Chiefs will win the day. Shake it off. Travis Kelce, Super Bowl MVP. Chiefs win 28-17.
Wow.
Niners are shut down in the second half completely. And then, yes, we'll get that Super Bowl proposal. And Rudy Gobert will somehow get his way onto the field and, cough on the microphones again, like he did 4 years ago.
So there are our superb owl predictions. Justin going with the San Francisco 49ers, Rick going with the Chiefs, and me kind of going for both teams, considering the way that my predictions go at this point. So I kind of win either way, realistically, with that being said. So that being said, that ends the full topic. Boys, it was an honor to once again go through yet another NFL season with you both. This is our second full season we are completing on the show. Hopefully, many more to come if all things go right. Someone please sponsor us at some point. That being said, we have one final segment to end off the show. We're still waiting for our first actual official sponsor, not all of our unofficial official sponsors. So with that being said, let's end off the show the right way. And probably, I think if we ever do get sponsored, this should be the first segment that ever gets sponsored on the show. Rant and Rick's Roast from Podium. Rick, take us home. Take us into the Super Bowl where we will have good food, hopefully, a good viewing experience, and please, for the love of God, a good game at least. So, Rick, all yours.
God, I've got 7 good ones today, man. But, all right. Number 3. There's a Latin phrase. The Latin phrase is called caveat emptor. And in Latin, this phrase means let the buyer beware, which is different from beware of dog, which is cave cana. And why do I know this? Because I took 8 years of a dead language. God help you. But the reason why I'm saying caveat emptor, Hong Kong and the Chinese government and the Chinese fan base, look, you went into the game with Inter Miami with Lionel Messi maybe getting in and maybe not. And now you're raising all this stink about he played in Japan, but he didn't play here, so we all want our money back. Do you know how it works on Broadway? When you go and see a show and the person you want to see isn't there, they have an understudy. They have a stand-in. And you don't get your money back for that. The stand-in, by the way, could do a damn good job. I went to see Aladdin years ago when it first came back on Broadway. And instead of James Monroe Iglehart as the genie, it was his stand-in, Major Attaway. And let me tell you something. Props to Major Attaway. Phenomenal job as the genie. I didn't leave saying, oh man, I want to give me my money back to Disney and Broadway and all. Like, no, like, okay, you didn't see Messi. So what? He's overrated. Who cares? And now you're going to pull an Argentina friendly as backlash for this? Like, are you that petty? Come on. Caveat emptor, man. Let the buyer beware. Sometimes things just don't work. How's Disneyland working for you, Hong Kong? Number 2 on my rant podium list. So, there is an advertisement going on right now that's been going on for about a few months that has really irritated me. And it's the Instacart one. Because it shows you all the things that are wrong with society today. Because the father and son are at the studio, obviously, football game, yet the father is on his phone on the Instacart app buying groceries. So the whole hook of this ad is it's the combination football game and grocery store. I could not give more downvotes to this stupid advertisement if I wanted to. Like, this is the reason why we're all so busy looking at our phones that we're not watching anything. Like, have you seen those videos that are like, someone at the concert has like the main camera and they're watching the performer, and instead of like all those lights or whatever people or hands people watching the show, if all these people are on phones are like, oh, I want to take a video of this to propose it for my 10 fans on Instagram, or like my 22 friends that I live in the dorm room with. Like, this is why people are having problems with today's society, because if you're at the football game, you're at the football game. If you're at the grocery store, you're at the grocery store. Those two things do not mix. So stop making them mix. Because let me tell you how this is going to work. If you're going to MetLife, you buy your groceries on Instacart at MetLife, right? And you think, okay, let me set the time for Instacart to set this, send the groceries over there by 6 o'clock, whatever, because, 2-hour drive, no big deal. Uh-oh, Holland Tunnel's closed. Uh-oh, 2 lanes in construction in Lincoln. That 2-hour drive became 4 hours, and you're sitting there waiting for your groceries, which are on the stoop, probably been stolen by somebody on your street, or a rat, or a seagull, or someone just threw them on there, and that apple that you wanted is now rolling down the sidewalk into the sewer for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles to eat instead. And they don't like apples. They like pizza. Why are you doing them a disservice? So let's just stop. And to that end, side tangent here. Why are you releasing the Super Bowl commercials so early? Like, I understand that, you're not watching them during the game because, let's be honest here, if people have DVR, you're just screwing past and going at the game. But, like, the thing I used to love about the Super Bowl commercials was that when they came out, it was, like, organic. And look, I love the Paramount one where Patrick Stewart throws Hey Arnold. I love it. Creed's in it. It's great. But, like, I could have watched it on Sunday and enjoyed myself instead of watching it 8 days prior. And you could say, oh, that was your choice. You did that. But that's the point. Number 1. So I was going to talk about Jack Sweeney because of his idea of, let me track celebrities that fly on these planes. Let me track their planes because I want to see their carbon emissions, which is just the stupidest way to spend a Friday night I think I've ever heard in my entire life. I was going to talk about Bobby Altoff, but I don't want to give someone who doesn't deserve time on this vaunted podcast segment, so I'm not going to. So what I am going to do is I'm going to yell at San Mateo County, California. San Mateo, the city of San Mateo, is about 7 miles south of San Francisco. So they're in the San Francisco, Oakland, Berkeley general area. They're a suburb, technically. This week, San Mateo County declared a public health emergency. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, okay, well, that could be a problem because, bad weather and, maybe, you got to boil water emergency, all that sort of thing. Now it's logical. But no, San Mateo County has called a public health emergency for loneliness. I have a very simple key for you to not be lonely in San Mateo County. You're 7 miles away from San Francisco. That team is playing in the Super Bowl. Go to a goddamn Super Bowl party and make some friends. God. Now, look, do I hate people? Absolutely. I think that's a given. But am I going to encourage you to go be friends with people? Yes, because it's a lot better than being lonely and having to be about public health emergency. How soft are we? That it's a public health emergency to be lonely. Like, I'm sorry, but Jerk's not lonely. Jerk has us. He's got his family. He's got his people that he works with. Like, he could go out for a beer with them if he wanted to. Not at 11 o'clock at night or St. Mary's Pepperdine game, but 10 o'clock in the morning, go out for lunch. Why not? Justin's not lonely. Justin's got family and friends. Go to their 912th Fish concert every weekend, whatever. I'm not lonely. I've got family and friends. Like, why is this a public health emergency? Why are we stupid and soft in this society? Like, again, the Niners are playing in the Super Bowl on Sunday. It's 2 days away. Go to a bar. Go to a party. Connect with your father. Call your dad. Call your mom. Call your grandma. Like, there's things to do than not be lonely and looking at your phone. Or just, like, staring at the window. Call somebody. You know what I used to love? I used to love seeing these tropes where people would just call random numbers just to talk to people. Like, do that. Dial a random number. Just not my number. Because I will respond to you. I'll make sure you're double lonely if you call me. I don't know who you are. But call somebody. Go see somebody. Shoot the breeze with the mailman for all I care. Just stop with the stupidity, man. This broke me. This absolutely broke me. Thanks.
So, that being said, ladies and gentlemen, probably the most emotional end to a rant and rage podium ever. Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of the show, guys. The Super Bowl recap will be next week's episode. We're definitely going to do anywhere from 1 to 3 episodes post Super Bowl before we do a little hiatus, just like we did last year when it comes to the show. A little bit of a refresh for us to get ready for the following portions of the season. And then, ladies and gentlemen, it's the offseason. We go from there. So that's it being said. Thank you so much for joining us on yet another edition of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast. Make sure you continue to come watch the show on Twitter and on YouTube here, the Sports Agents of Chaos YouTube channel. Like, comment, subscribe to the YouTube channel for more. Hit that notification bell if you want to get notified whenever we go live. For the most part, it is on Saturdays. We have to do a special thing here tonight because we got some busy schedules here. But for the most part, I mean, hey, if it's before the week, we're going to get an episode up in some way, shape, or form. Don't you worry your sweet little head about that, darlings. We will always get an episode up in some way, shape, or form, except when we take off. So with that being said, the Super Bowl is this weekend. Please make sure, enjoy food, enjoy the game, enjoy time with other people for once. Don't be lonely, ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the day. Enjoy this weekend. Enjoy every weekend beyond that. Last football game of this season. Let's have a time from the three of us to all of you. Let's have yet another weekend before we get to the next episode full of fun, football, and chaos. From your champions to all of you, take care, and we'll see you back next time.